As the amount of data continues to rise exponentially, operators are willing to extract as much information as possible. However, the potential of big data poses an altogether different challenge, combining large amounts of information to increase revenues and profits across the entire telecom value chain. From network operators to product developers and customer service, each entity has an access to unparalleled amounts of customer and network data. And yet, they are only just beginning to unlock the value of this information. Conventionally, operators have assumed the roles of enablers with surprisingly little visibility into context and content of their captive data assets. Utilized intelligently and creatively, this data holds the key to an intimate understanding of customer needs and preferences. In the broader sense, it would lead to the successful evolution of the role of operators at the center of the mobile communications ecosystem. It is in this spirit we would like to introduce the topic for our second panel discussion, Monetizing Big Data, the next big force to propel business dynamics.
To channelize and moderate the discussion, we have with us the moderator of the panel discussion, Mr. Kalol Hazra, independent consultant and mentor for startups in mobility, cloud, and IoT. With a rich experience of over 25 years, Sir is currently engaged in consulting and mentoring startups to build solutions incorporating mobility, IoT, and smart city developments. Sir also supervises clients on working on IT transformation projects to move them to a complete digitalized world. Prior to this, Sir headed the operations as Managing Director, India at CSG International, where his primary responsibility was to execute delivery of BSS solutions to clients across America, EMEA, and Asia Pacific. Sir has also worked with several other organizations spanning multiple divisions and groups such as Compaq, HP, and EDS, where he handled multiple roles related to sales, technical support, e-business, marketing, etc. So we once again welcome you to Communiqué15.
Oh, thank you.
I would now like to invite on stage Mr. D. Sambat, Senior Vice President, Global Practice Head, Polaris Consulting and Services Limited. Sir brings in along a rich experience of 25 plus years in IT industry and 17 plus years in data warehousing, big data, data science, and machine learning. Sir is a big data and business analytics certified professional and has worked in several domains such as banking, insurance, telecom, retail, manufacturing, hospitality, etc. Prior to his current role, Sir has served different companies with key roles like VP and data scientist at Artha Solutions, Practice Director Information Management and Analytics at Triance Holding Private Limited, Chief Architect and CSE Australia, and many more. Sir, SITM welcomes you to Communiqué15.
Next, I would like to call upon stage Mr. Kannan Sethuraman, Vice President, Maverick Systems Limited. Sir has a total work experience of 28 years spanning across the fields of business intelligence, IT architecture, enterprise infrastructure management, VLTB implementation, and information security management. Sir brings with him an all-round insight on computing, networking, and communication technology landscape, including latest industry standards and practices. With significant system integration and architect experience, Sir has provided consulting services in the telecom, banking, and financial services and insurance sectors across US, Europe, Middle East, and Asia Pacific markets. Currently, Sir is heading the data-led technology services at Maverick Systems. Prior to this, he was leading the Telecom business unit in 2011. Sir, SITM welcomes you to Communiqué15.
Our next esteemed panelist is Mr. Arjun Rajgopalan, Director, Financial Advisory Services, Deloitte, India. Sir has spent 11 years in telecom domain across the value chain in mobile, fixed line, broadband, carrier, enterprise services, OEM, passive infrastructure, VAS, and system integration domains in various geographies like India, Middle East, Africa, and Europe. Sir has a rich experience along the service lines such as risk, strategy and operations consulting, IT consulting, forensic, etc. At Deloitte India, Sir is responsible to institutionalize the telecom practice with financial services for capability building, solution development, and go-to-market strategies. Sir, SITM welcomes you to Communiqué15.
Next, I would like to invite on stage Mr. Satyam Bansal, Mobile App Distribution and Strategic Alliances at Flipkart.com. Extremely passionate about global emerging markets, trends, and technologies, Sir heads the Strategic Alliances and Gift Card business for Flipkart. Sir's portfolio drives over $400 million of revenue for the company through alliances with bank, telecom companies, and various other associations. Sir has an MBA in Finance and Entrepreneurship from the University of Southern California. Sir, SITM welcomes you to Communiqué15.
Our next esteemed panelist is Mr. Deepak Mittal, Consulting Partner, Customer Experience Solutions, Telecom Business Unit, TCS. Sir holds a Master in Business Administration degree in Marketing and Systems from Indian Institute of Management, Lucknow, and has worked for over 20 years in telecom service provider domain, handling sales and business development roles with large global companies like Convergys, Wipro, and Lucent Technologies, as well as notable startup businesses. Sir has handled various portfolios of BSS, OSS, VAS, and CEM solution and services. Sir's core strength is in building complex, multi-layered IT solutions focused on achieving business goals. At present, Sir focuses is on architecting and delivering value propositions around customer service engagement with comprehensive view of business drivers as well as underlining IT and network enablers. Sir, SITM welcomes you to Communiqué15.
Next, I would like to invite on stage Mr. Kaushik B., Associate Director at ProTVT India. Sir has more than 15 years of professional experience working with a broad range of global, public, and private organizations across India, Middle East, and Africa, helping them deal with their most significant business risks and issues. His experience includes business and operational risk advisory, internal audit, fraud investigations, process improvements, data analytics, and system setups, etc. Sir has a diverse experience in industries like telecommunication, telecom infrastructure companies, internet and broadband service provider, media and entertainment, call center, food and beverages, cash management, oil and gas, etc. In the past, Sir has worked in organizations like Bharti Airtel, Idea Cellular, and Tata Teleservices in revenue assurance and billing operations. Sir, we are honored to have you with us.
Our final panelist is Mr. Vikas Thanvi, Associate Director, Sales at Huawei Telecommunications India Co. Private Limited. Sir is an accomplished and seasoned telecom professional with over 15 years of rich experience in leading ICT companies. Sir has worked in CRM, business development, program management, product management, technology and business consultation and services, etc. Sir has been associated with Arcom, VSNL, Avaya, and currently guiding Huawei Telecommunications in the role of Associate Director and spearheading the team of telecom professionals to cater to the world's third largest telecom operator, Bharti Airtel. Sir, SITM welcomes you to Communiqué15. I would now request our moderator, Mr. Kalol Hazra, to please preside over the session.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Are we still awake after that smart city discussion? Okay, good. So I want to hear once again, good afternoon. That sounds better, much better. Okay, to contextualize big data monetization, a lot has been said since morning, and I don't want to repeat the words which were already spoken since morning, and a lot has been said about what is big data, and monetization is a challenge. I have an esteemed panel here who can touch upon various facets of big data and how we can actually use it better and generate money from it. And this will be, actually this will very well, dovetail into what smart cities are doing, because when you are talking about smart cities, it has to generate a lot of data. So how do we monetize that and make sure that we are doing the right things for the citizens and actually providing the right level of quality of life using big data. So monetization becomes a truly challenging topic for all of us here sitting on the panel. To start with, I'll start with a small definition so that all of us are on the same page. What is big data? And if you Google big data, you'll find a lot of definitions, a lot of things which talk about structured, unstructured, voice, video, SMS, WhatsApp, and so on and so forth. I thought the most pertinent set is data sets so large or complex that traditional data processing applications are inadequate today. So that, to me, is one of the good definition of big data. And challenges include analysis, capture, data curation, search, sharing, storage, transfer, visualization, and information privacy. So this constitutes big data. And so how many of you are familiar with Moore's law? Raise your hands. Moore's law in integrated circuit technology. Some of you must have heard about Intel and Moore's law. Way back in college you have, or first year of college you must have learned it. Moore's law states that the power or the capacity, compute capacity of every PC or every CPU which Intel makes doubles every 2 years, right? That is Moore's law definition of semiconductor technology. And that I found was very interesting because now, in fact today, I saw a tweet on the Moore's law of big data. And guess what it says? I'll read, quote unquote. The amount of nonsense packed into the term big data doubles approximately over 2 years. That is Moore's law for big data, right? So that sets a good context for all of us to actually channelize a discussion in monetizing this nonsense which people are talking about and try to see or try to make sense out of it so that end of the day it should result in some positive vibes not only for the industry, not only for individuals, but overall the technology and the concepts behind it should also be useful for generating new stuff, right? So that's the context and that's what I'm actually trying to set here in terms of the discussion. So let me start with, okay, before this, I'm going to give a story about this whole concept of big data and how it's being used. I don't know how many of you have heard about Watson. Anyone? Watson, IBM? Yeah, it's a platform using big data which analyzes stuff in minutes or in seconds rather on various aspects of whatever inputs you provide. There is a Watson page on analytics for personal behavior. So what it does is you go to that page, it's a publicly available page. I can send you the link. You go to that page and it will just ask you to write a few paragraphs. I think it says you have to write 3,000 words and it can be anything like I'm addressing you. I can write down this text and key it there. Or you are talking to your parents or to your friends, or somebody is talking to his team, team members. You can write that. Based on what you write, it will actually within seconds tell your all the parameters associated with your personality. Very scary actually, because you write something, you come to know about your personality within seconds, and this is based on historical data, what people like my profile have put in there and actually come up with that result. And believe it or not, I was surprised to see that whatever traits it has described me with actually matches around 80-85%, which is pretty good, I would say, in the infancy of that project. So how do we use that, and what are the what are the takeaways from it? I think one of the takeaway is that you can actually do away with the recruitment team. So those who are doing HR, better be careful. No recruitment, because what I do is, suppose Arjun wants to recruit 10 people in his organization. So Arjun will go to the recruitment team and say that, these are the job description and I want to recruit 10 people. And Arjun is in a big company, so his recruitment team will go fetch resumes from all over the place and do a search, scan, run it through tools, figure out which keywords match the requirement, and come up with 200 names, right? And those 200 names are actually people who have to be interviewed for those 10 positions. Quite a massive task in today's context. And everyone will have 2 months joining period, 3 months joining period. So by the time Arjun gets those people, 6 months have elapsed. Typical problem, right? And we all face it in our everyday, job challenges. Instead of that, if I could have Watson, and by the way, there's an extension to Watson, and they're using IBM Bluemix, which is another tool where I feed the resumes there. They go and collect the profile of all the people from all the media which is available, social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and every one of us are in one or all of those media, right? Social media. And it actually, picking on your keywords, what you're writing there, what you're putting in there, it actually matches and gives profile which Arjun actually wants. And instead of 200 people, it will now come back and say, these 10 will match the profile and will be actually suitable for the type of, other skill sets you're looking for. So effectively, from 200, you bring it down to 20, and that becomes a more manageable problem. So what are we solving? We are monetizing big data here. How? We are actually reducing the number of recruiters in our team. Again, loss of job opportunity, but they can do better things actually. And for the organization, they can do recruitment at a faster rate. So that's the monetization aspect I'm actually referring to when I talk about how is big data helping monetization, right? So let me jump to Arjun only, and because he brings in the Deloitte background. So Arjun, what according to you is you're seeing in the market today as far as monetization of the business in the real world is concerned using big data?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
I think yes, they can hear you.
So let me just go to the
No, you have to hold it.
definition
You have to hold it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me just go to the definition of big data once more. So in a very short way, big data means something which is a high volume and a variety and a velocity. This is a classic definition of a big data, right? So if you talk about this particular definition, I think it is heading for a disaster. And as he rightly said, it's actually a nuisance. So the way that we need to look at big data and the way the organization also have realized is that it's actually an old wine in a new bottle. So we've been talking about data, we've been talking about volumes of data, and we've also been talking about analysis of those data to probably ensure there is a higher a higher uptake of customer adoptions. There is a upsell, there is a cross-sell, there is a churn reduction. So these things have been there in the entire ecosystem for quite a while. The difference is that now we are talking about something which is more complex from a technology point of view, and then it brings in my capability to probably go through more volumes of data in shorter set of time. So that's what is changing from a technology perspective, right? So let me just see that the way that we look at the entire thing is that who's going to make money? So when you're saying monetization of big data, who's the one who's going to monetize? So one is that, is it the IT company which is saying that how do I monetize big data? The answer is yes, because they're going to sell it to all the people and say that your life is going to change after this, and therefore they'll make money out of it. Are the operators, because coming from the telecom background, probably like to touch upon the operator perspective, are the operator going to make money out of big data? The answer is a no. The only way the operator is going to make money is to probably use the data smartly. So the way we tweak the definition to big data, which is going to be successful, is that I've just tried to note it down here, is that when there is a relevant volume of data, which is relevant, when there is a variety which is limited, and then when there is a velocity which is with the direction. So if you have all these three things, that's when you'll actually see a big data picking up, because it will be more relevant to the organization. So one classic example which I wanted to probably quote here is one of the leading companies, especially the third largest he was mentioning about, is a company which has been wanting to probably respond to some of the new competition, say Reliance Jio coming up, and they've been wanting to get into the quad play, which is basically merging your different services, which could be your telemedia services to your mobile phone services, and then they have their entire broadband, and then the DTH will come in together, right? So when they want to do this today, the biggest challenge for them is that while they have volumes and volumes of data existing in different systems and different platforms and ecosystem, what they don't know is to how to smartly use these data together and bring it together. So today, if I as a family am a user of a mobile phone, my father is also a user of a mobile phone, and then I have a broadband at home and a DTH home, there is no way today Airtel can find out that all these 4 people are linked together.
Correct.
Despite the fact that there is actually a data which is lying in their system. And this has been traditionally a problem with them because every business of, say, not only Airtel, for example, any of the operator as well, they've traditionally grown with only one objective, which is subscriber acquisition. They got their licenses, they went ahead and acquired customers, and they just went ahead building their entire platform according to what was the acquisition rate. So there was no planned way in terms of how do I structure the data, how do I structure the database and the application in such a way that I can smartly make use of them earlier. Now, when you have this realization now, you cannot go back and do a patchwork later and start ensuring that you just put one big data application in place and then it's going to probably turn around things for you. It's not going to happen that way. So the most important thing right now is to look at how do I manage the current situation and probably going forward have a structure in place which is going to be more scalable in nature and have a data in place which can be used in a more smarter way. And therefore, we are able to use this tool more effectively. The magic does not lie in the tool, the magic lies in the way that you're going to drive the entire tool, and that decision is something which the management has to take. And they'll have to take it, taking into the cognizance the entire organization whole rather than the functional aspects. So why I'm touching this specific point is the fact that if I say churn reduction, right, so there'll be a lot of companies will come back and say, okay, I'll reduce the churn. And maybe they'll prove that they've actually reduced the churn rate for every operator. But having said that, what I probably save on churn as, say, operator X, for example, I'm saying that from 100 people, now my churn has got reduced to 70, which means that 30 people have actually got retained in my network, which means that 30 people who are supposed to get added to some other operator, they've actually lost out that opportunity. So therefore, in the entire ecosystem, the gross add for the telecom operators have not increased. It is a cyclic set of people who are moving around. Right. So while as an organization you've actually gained on the churn, but you don't know whether your gross ads have come down or not, right? So this is where, as an organization, they've started realizing that when we are talking about big data, we'll have to actually look at it holistically as an organization point of view rather than individual matrices and individual functions, which has been the case earlier. Now they're changing from there to a more holistic organizational view.
Good. Thanks, Arjun. Thank you. So that reminds me of my story of Airtel. I'll name the operator here because it's important to understand the context. I have a LTE connection at home, which is a broadband connection, and I have a mobile phone, which I have churned from Vodafone to Airtel some time back. And I wanted a common bill. And I said, why don't you both are my connection, why don't you give a common bill? Sir, that will not be possible. I said, why? You put same customer ID, it will be possible. Then I came to know the LTE network of Airtel is managed by Huawei, and the 3G and 2G networks is managed by IBM. So IBM doesn't talk to Huawei. So IBM doesn't know I'm a Huawei customer. I'm a customer in the Huawei network, and Huawei doesn't know I'm a customer on the IBM network, and hence these two systems don't talk to each other. What Airtel is losing out on my TCO, what I'm giving them, rather than having individual numbers, they could have seen me as a much higher paying customer in the overall lifespan. So that's a good point you made. So
and it extends further to the states as well.
Correct.
So one state to other state,
exactly.
When I move,
and
there is no record.
And that is why I want to bring in the Huawei person, Vikas. So what do you think, how can these challenges be overcome in the overall context of big data? Because there will be co-opetition in most of the operators. You will be working with Ericsson in some accounts. You will be working with IBM and Nokia in other accounts. So monetizing the whole aspect of it from a network provider's perspective is a big challenge. So how do you see it?
First, hello?
Yeah, you're audible.
Okay. The first thing I would like to tell you is that, Indian telcos have never been innovator in one sense. They always have been, the followers. That's the first and important thing. Now, if we talk about last 3-4 years, what telecom industry had seen is nowhere has happened in globally. Why? Because the around 30 to 40% of the capex of the telcos goes in the spectrum purchase and the revenue fee which what they have to pay for the spectrum. So last 3-4 years, the major focus only has been on the spectrum. Second thing is, we are unique in nature of the number of operators in India. We have close to 10 to 12 operators in India. So everybody is fighting for their top line. Nobody knows how the profitability will come, how uniqueness will come. If I ask, look, nobody knows that any operator is a brand. Even though they are providing services, people are satisfied with the services also, but there is no brand attachment or brand dependency for anybody. Even you yourself have said that you wanted to migrate to someone, but you could not, because they were not able to put the right thing what you wanted. So this is the first thing. Now I give you a different perspective, wherein I believe, as a professional who is working in the telco, whether being the operator side or by the OEM side, for last 10 to 20 years, what is happening is telco is enabler for all the data. When we talk about big data, what is data? Data is whatever action you and me are doing, somebody is capturing that. What is that? That is the human psychology. Companies like Procter & Gamble, who are 150 years old, why they have succeeded is because they always studied the human behavior, adopted themselves, created products which are useful for that very customer during that time. Whether we are doing that or not is the big question. So that data is always captured by the telcos for somebody else. So telco has to move from the enabler point of view towards the driver perspective. This is the most important part. And I believe, and what is happening in some of the European countries, Middle East companies also, is that telcos are moving from telco to ICT companies. They are acquiring through direct acquisition or merger and acquisition some IT companies, application companies, and they are increasing their portfolio. Why? Because they are the real owners of the data. Majority of the data is being collected by the telcos. So this is the most important part. Now, when we talk about whether this can add to their revenue or not, so there was an estimation, and there were some pilot projects which were done in some of the European countries and in China by China Unicom, and they have seen that there are 3 major verticals wherein they can increase their overall revenue, and they have seen by the pilots that the increase of the revenue or in terms of total in comparison to cost is varying from 8 to 18%. And this is the real number which is come up by a China Unicom study. Now what are these 3 verticals? So first is that reducing their cost in terms of their overall processes, which can be in OSS, BSS, how they are doing that. And second important is the network optimization. Most of the network which has been built in last 20 to 30 years is majorly the GSM or partly CDMA network. In last 3 to 4 years, the whole network globally and India is getting transformed, which is 3G and 4G. By coming of these 3 technologies, 2 major nodes which is coming is packet core and LTE. On LTE, we will see voice over LTE coming in. So the whole network, the whole capex on the infrastructure, spending is going to change drastically. Now, how to put that and how to use that? If I typically talk about what is the voice ARPU, is close to 70 to 80 rupees for majority of the telco. Now, I will talk about top 3 operators. And if we talk about what is the data ARPU, is actually higher than the voice ARPU, and it is ranging in 120 to 130 rupees. So these are the 2 major streams. Now, if we talk about what is the expenditure they are incurring in that, is actually 80 to 90% of the investment is being happening only for the data, which is 3G or 4G. And there is a huge reduction of capex investment in 2G. So they are going to do is the analyze how is the routing being done for most of the LTE networks or the packet core networks, where to put the content, content specific to the region, because normally in India, the traffic, when it is measured out for the whole data, 80% of data is being generated by video or music. These are the two major portion which is generating 80 to 90% of the data. So most of the operators are doing this also and are going to do that also, is how the routing has to be done. Companies like Reliance Jio are expected to launch their voice on LTE, so that is VoLTE. So there also, the routing aspect is going to save a lot of money for them. They are also relying, majorly on that aspect. Now, I think Arjun raised the point of customer retention also, wherein we were saying that no operator is creating their brand. So there also, whatever data has been, created, needs to be analyzed. Normally, we say, as per some reports also, and again, I will
Because you have to
that,
lift the mic, they can't hear.
again, I will repeat that the global trend. Till now, the telcos were, majorly driven after CEO was CTO or the CMO. We foresee is that going forward, telcos will also become an ICT organizations, and they will majorly be driven by CIOs, not CTOs. Why? Because now the infrastructure is a normal thing. Okay, the pipes have been created. Now, how to utilize these platforms, these infrastructures? I just give an example of the ARPU which is generated by CRBT and missed call alerts is 30 rupees. And if I talk about the cost, so 60 rupees, and we talked about ARPU from voice was around same, 70-80 rupees. If I talk about the spendings, I think the spending on these two, CRBT and missed call alert only, is I think less than 1,000 or 10,000 times the spending which is being incurred on the rest of the network for the same ARPU. So these kind of services on data has to be created, has to be thought about, not only on BSS and OSS aspect. Now, who is earning on these data is OTT players. I don't think that telcos are going to keep quiet on that. They are creating the infrastructure, and they will not let only OTT players to earn money on that. So they have to think, and they are going to think. And the example will be set forth by Reliance Jio, who have launched a couple of applications, and they have done this beta testing on their own people, that they have already done that. So this is one.
Okay,
Now,
Vikas, we'll come back to you. Just give me a second, because we are getting into details of telco. We have to change the mood and talk about e-commerce, because a lot of data is generated as far as e-commerce are concerned. How many of you are users of Flipkart? How many of you use it on the app, not on the web? Ah, there you are. Okay, so the challenge with Flipkart, and by the way, I'm also a user on the app, and I use it on the web also, and it says, welcome back, Kalol, and this is the stuff which you have not bought, which you have seen, and it actually, every time it enthuses me to buy, which I have left in the basket I have not bought. So I think that's the strategy which Flipkart is already following. And part of it, raises from the fact that they want to attract your attention, that you had seen this, there's a price reduction on this, why don't you buy? That is some sort of analysis which has been going on. So to talk more about what Flipkart is doing with big data and how they're trying to monetize it, I'll request Satyam to spend a few minutes and tell us what's happening in that $400 million business.
Well, the $400 million is the small pie that I control, but this year we're going to be clocking about $8 billion in revenue. So hopefully
I'm talking about your
some of
business.
that. Sure. So very, very encouraged to see the show of hands and the number of people using Flipkart and e-commerce in general. I mean, I think we're really going through some transitional times here, where last, especially 1.5 years have been truly inflection, have reached inflection for overall the industry and the user base. So, glad to be living and influencing those times, and it's in our own small ways. So I think I'm going to try and touch upon these things generally from e-commerce and Flipkart's perspective. So we have always been a company that have looked around, seen what is the data that we are hearing and seeing specifically for India as a market and the Indian user as a context, and try to organize and associate our behavior, our products, our efforts in those directions. So to take you to the early days, Flipkart was one of the first companies in the whole world in the e-commerce sector to actually introduce cash on delivery, and that decision really came through from the fact that there is a parallel cash economy in this country, if I might say so, and there are only 20 million credit cards in a country of 1.2 billion people. So we instituted cash on delivery, which made it really, really simple for people to actually experience, get the taste of it, and then over a period of time pull out their plastic, This is one of the sort of examples, and I can go on and talk about 2, 3 more. Recently, we launched something called Ping. So we created a survey by way of which we learned that the users want to be able to shop online in a similar behavior the way we shop in a brick and mortar establishment. So I go with somebody to shop in a mall. I typically will try out a shoe and ask you that, hey, how's the shoe looking on me? You might say, hey, this one's not looking good. Why don't you try the other one? So we are trying to simulate a similar behavior online as well. So we recently launched a product in our app called Ping, which basically is a chat built within our app and allows you, whether you're sitting in US or Dubai or wherever, to chat with me, and if we are buying a gift for a common friend, we can actually just drag and drop different products in that chat and make a selection, and the checkout probably just split the bill as well. So if I were to sort of broadly classify 4 different ways that we use data, one would be to basically, and the most important one, would be to understand what the market is telling us, to really, really keep our ear to the ground, look at the behavior and the clicks that we are seeing through hundreds of millions of clicks that come through our channels on a monthly basis, and influence our product and decision making moving forward. That's the most important one. Second would be to probably reduce and optimize the marketing costs that we are actually pumping. We are far from being a profitable company right now, and we need to be able to very, very be conscientious about the way we spend money. It's easy to splurge money all over the place, but it's important for us to see that should I be showing you, or should I be spending my dollar to showing you a shoe ad, or should I be showing you a mobile phone ad? And that I can do only if I know what your behavior is, if I have some insights into your propensity about what you are more likely to buy. And all that data comes through the wish lists that you add products in, what you browse, even third-party sites that we might be seeing. So we are actually doing all that data collection, and some people probably look at this as invasion of privacy. We look at it as hopefully trying to make that experience much more contextual, personalized, and relevant to the end user.
And the real estate space is also decreasing, right? Because now you're doing it on the mobile, so your ads have to be more relevant.
Absolutely. So that, absolutely right. Touch upon the decision that you've been hearing about Flipkart being, going mobile only. I'm not sure about mobile only, but we certainly are very, very mobile heavy and a mobile first company. And that decision as well came, by keeping our ears to the ground, looking at the trends of data that we were seeing over the past 3 or 4 years. Today, 72 to 73% of the data that is flowing and the usage in India is on mobile as a channel. And for us, it's close to about 85%. And almost 60 to 70% of our revenue comes from mobile as a platform. So the writing is on the wall for us, that do we actually continue spreading our efforts and defocusing on multiple channels, or do we actually build an absolutely stellar product that has a wow factor that has never been ever built anywhere in the world, because companies like Amazon, Alibaba, if I might name, were built in the desktop era. So Flipkart is one of the first companies, a large, major worldwide e-commerce player who's trying to build a product first for the mobile era. And these are all data-led decisions, very, very radical decisions, hard to make, and we are receiving a lot of flack, as a lot of people say, but we have to be a little, gutsy, if I might say, to make those decisions. And the third big piece, which actually would really, really fall in the bucket of monetization, would be how do we actually get this data to convert into dollars and rupees for us. So like I said, marketing cost optimization is one, but now if I know that you've been browsing through shoes, then I can show you an ad for shoes, and I can actually take that money from Nike or from Timberland or whatever, and that becomes a bottom line dollar for us. And there are various different ways for us to monetize the rich data that we're sitting on. I will sort of just conclude by making a quick statement that even though there's a lot of talk about big data, I think the amount and the kind of data in general the industry, especially in e-commerce, is sitting on and retail is sitting on is still very, very archaic. If I had to know that how much Samsung phone is my competitor selling today, I do not have data on that. If I wanted to find out how much of tomatoes does Big Basket or one of the grocery online retailers sell, that's not publicly available information.
Onions
And they
is.
could,
Onions is.
onions, tomatoes, whatever it is. So there's a long, long way to go, and for some of you all who might be looking to actually, become entrepreneurs after you graduate out of here, there's a huge opportunity in data analytics, especially in the retail industry. I can speak for.
Sure. Thanks. Satyam, for that. Actually, that leads me to the next part, which is basic. Yeah.
Look, before we just end, so I just wanted to ask you one simple question which you can elaborate further.
Sure.
I believe there's a lot of opportunity in the anti-counterfeit part also around the data analytics, because you make use of data analytics for a lot of anti-counterfeit analysis also, right? So can you throw some light around that if you know?
So I'll give you a small example. We recently internally implemented a product which can actually look at the image that a seller is publishing on Flipkart. I mean, just to give you some context, we are now moving towards a platform for sellers. We are moving away from buying inventory from brands and selling it. We actually are a platform where buyers and sellers meet. It's a marketplace, essentially. Yeah. So we have implemented a product internally which actually looks at various different data points and analyzes the behavior and classifies a particular product to be to potentially be having a higher possibility of being counterfeit or not. The way the image has been clicked, are you seeing a price on the image? Does the image, so the various different data points, and I'm not the right person to speak about it, but those are the efforts that we are making to have various different signals coming from various different points and creating cohorts of possibilities of, eliminating counterfeit.
So that effectively becomes monetization of the big data you have, and you're generating because you're preventing customers from buying counterfeit, number one.
Yep.
The customer satisfaction is high, so there will be a repeat sale
Absolutely.
of whatever.
It may not be direct monetization, but
Correct.
definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Exactly. So what Vikas says, what Satyam says makes sense, because in my last assignment, I was working with a company called Quero, and they're into big data analytics, and what they do is they work for customers like ESPN in the US, where like we have cricket here, which with massive fan following. In the US, the baseball and rugby leagues have massive following. And they, when the season starts, they have, they create fan clubs for different people. You can go and register on ESPN website in Americas as a fan follower of rugby league for a particular team, create your own team. And while you're registering, it captures all your vital, data in terms of your likes, dislikes, your age, what is the age of your car, because that's important from the monetization aspect. So what Quero does is funnels it through different channels and different, feeds they have, and they have a Hadoop platform, and we'll talk about Hadoop very soon, and channelizes it in such a manner that the ads which get fed when you go to the ESPN site are customized for you. For example, if it is me who's my car is 5 years old, they know that I'm looking when I'm going there and trying to see the fantasy league of ESPN. They know that my car has crossed 4 years, 7 months, 8 months, and I will be looking at cars, new cars. So the ads which pop up are related to cars only. That's what I think Satyam alluded to in terms of targeted ads. So this becomes very interesting and very good for data analytics and the visualization aspect of it. So some of you who are doing systems will be interested in pursuing a career in data analytics and visualization. And it's a vast field in terms of both business rules, technologies, and associated logic which comes with it. After all, it's common sense. We have to apply common sense to business problems and take help of tools to resolve those. So thanks, Satyam, for that.
Thank you.
So let me move track and get into some technology aspect of it. And there's no better person than Sambit to talk about how, from your experience, we use huge number of tools to analyze and get meaningful information out of. Forget about big data itself. Yep. So some of it are archaic, some of it are evolving. So what, according to you, will be the next trend in analyzing this structured, unstructured data, and the platforms and the technologies which will be useful for going forward and making sense out of it?
Yeah. To start with, right, Arjun basically pointed out that we have old wine in new bottle,
Correct.
right? So I would say that old wine or more wine in the new bottle, right? Because you are talking about not just the data,
Yeah.
you're talking about structured data, unstructured data, and which basically comes from social media and other areas where we collect all the information we need to do the processing. So the bottle which we have been using, right, it has been pretty old and which cannot handle more. So yeah, not exactly, right. So that's when we normally move from, we basically started with DBMS, right, and then we moved into RDBMS. And when the data grows, right, we have to basically upgrade ourselves, and that's when we moved into big data. So I would, Vikas also said that we are basically using data, right? I would basically go and classify this into passive and active data. Right? Whatever we basically leave it on the table, which is an active data. And we do leave a lot of passive data. For example, whatever applications which you use, the mobile, right? Which basically sends a lot of information back to the service provider. For example, your battery usage or your memory, right? That basically induces, or that basically gives them an opportunity to advance the mobile technology as well, right? It's not that the device basically does a lot of work behind, right? Which we don't even know, we don't even notice it, right? And from a big data perspective, like we talked about 3 V's, I would say I would categorize it into 5 V's, right? We are talking about variety, velocity, right? Veracity, and I would basically go with the visualization and what value we bring to the table. That's very important in the big data perspective, right? When we do the visualization part, and we all have to basically provide the value. The value can be built in 2 ways, right? One is moving from data, right, to precise data. The precision is very important. For any decision which you are talking about today, right, precision of data is very important. And the speed in which the velocity, speed in which the data basically, you're going to utilize, that's also is very important. So I would basically categorize this into velocity and the precision. Velocity being in the y-axis and precision being the x-axis, right? So if you look at it, right, we started with the x-axis at the bottom, and we moved to the precision where we basically get a lot of data. And the velocity basically, when the more and more data basically gets into the system, so we need to be accurate in terms of what we are providing and projecting, right, to the business, so that the business can easily grow. And that basically gets converted into any sort of visualization part or any decision-making process. So we started with DBMS, RDBMS, and then we started moving into Hadoop, right? There are various technologies which are basically getting involved. So we started with Hadoop, and Hadoop basically being done by Apache. So there are quite a few people who have basically started this, and companies like Cloudera, Hortonworks, Cloudera, Greenplum, and Cassandra. Right? These people have basically started putting their platforms over Hadoop, which basically provides a phenomenal feature. It basically uses the exact feature of big data and provides information back to the analyst, right, data analyst or data scientist, who provides or who applies the predictive models, or we call the statistical models. They take the domain, they take the specific problem statement, apply the statistical model, and on top of it, they come out with the exact information in terms of what can be provided, and where these guys are basically heading to, for example, take any area of like anti-money laundering, right, or any prediction model. Prediction, it basically predicts up to 95% accuracy, right? It basically tells you where exactly this particular person is going, or what exactly he's going to do, or how his usage is going to be. So that's what we are basically moving into, right? So big data basically is, from a technology perspective, it is moving far ahead, and then it is moving at a very great pace. So there are quite a few areas now which we talked about, right? For example, there are companies, the telephone company called Telefonica, which in Spain, which has done a lot of work in UK. And they have worked with a company like Morrison's, and where they've helped the company, the vendor, to basically improve their product profitability by 150%. Where they provide a lot of information about their own customers going around, and they basically pick up that information, they collate that information, they call it as breadcrumbs, right? And we call it as location intelligence. In our term, we call it as location intelligence. They provide that information back to the vendors so that they can promote their products in a much better way, because they basically send information through SMS or something, right? And they basically push that to the customers. And apart from that, we also talked about the sensors, right? I did a consulting some time back, and where the customer basically is sensing if if you go to a bank, right, they basically look at people's face. They take the facial expression of the people, and they analyze it. And then they basically come out with the conclusion saying that whether this guy is the happy customer or whether he's not happy. So they basically get into, this basically helps them out in terms of taking better decisions. Right? For example, if somebody is standing in a line for a long time, so you can't expect the person to be very happy. Right? So they take that. In fact, one of the banks is DBS Bank, which is in Singapore. They does it in a very effective way. They take the facial expression, they convert that into actual data, they compare it, and then they basically push that information back to their decision-making team, with which they take decisions in a better way, actually.
Sure.
So big data is basically helping them in a better way, and technology is helping the business to basically grow.
Correct. Thanks, Samad. This is echoing what Dubai is also doing, maybe in a similar context. Yeah, coming back to, I think, telcos, and there are a lot of telco people on this panel. I would request Deepak to talk about, on the telco side, what do you see from a TCS perspective? What are the things which are changing and which are helping telcos to monetize the data they're generating? Anything on that?
So a few experiences that I'd like to share. Being in TCS, one is an advantage position to have a global view of the kind of initiatives telcos are undertaking. I think Sampath already referred to one particular model, which is about sharing data with partners. That's one way to monetize. It could be also anonymized data that you share with agencies, which then use that data to put advertisements. That theme has been referred to as well. That's another theme. But there's one key theme which hasn't come up so far, and I'll just refer to that, and which is about how telcos can make their own offers a lot more appropriate to their customers. And an example I'd like to take is of an operator in India, to start with, who sends out close to 200 messages every month to their subscribers. That's like 6 to 10 messages a day. And the conversion rate is appalling. It's 2 or 2.5%. So the problem is that you're sending out messages to subscribers, for example, asking them to take the next best offer. Let's say like your LTE, when the subscriber actually has a service issue, his LTE is not working. Okay, so here's an example of where telco is not correlating the data points that they already have inside their own system to be able to make an intelligent decision about what offer to send out. So that's one. Another similar example I have is of a UK-based operator where they are sending out offers to their priority customers. And one of the key offers they were sending out was a £1 lunch. So very popular offer. So every Monday, when the offer goes out, if you are a priority subscriber, you get that offer, and you can then go to the specific location and avail yourself of £1 lunch. But the thing is that they have no track how many people have actually accepted the offer. So you go to the vendor who's supposed to, fulfill that offer, and he says that, look, I've run out of meals. I don't have any more meals left, right? So here's an example of, good intentions gone wrong. The third one example is from US, where a cable operator setting up a Wi-Fi network and giving services for free, but then generating data about the users on those Wi-Fi networks to be able to monetize that data with their advertisement partners or merchandising partners. So there are possibilities, but I think the biggest gap that we have seen, and somebody referred to variety of data right in the beginning, I think it was Arjun. So, how does the variety of data coexist in a way which is economical and where you can make use of it, number one. Number two, the technical, the overtly technical nature of the selling that probably people like us have done, where the end user becomes worried that, I'm getting into something that I don't really understand. So, I've had executives stand up in the meeting and tell me, don't talk about big data, don't talk about big data. Okay, so, I've heard enough. Okay, so it's about, making it something which is more meaningful, relevant for them.
So the customer is saying, or your executives are saying, don't talk about
Customers are saying.
Customers are saying. Okay.
I get paid for talking like it.
Exactly. Okay. Thanks, Deepak. Okay.
Just one lighter note.
Yeah.
The tagline for SITM says, Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam. you know.
Great.
So
It's on that side, we can't see it.
on that side as well as on our folders. So, you know, the age of big data is really about Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam. You know, it's about world being a family.
Good. Okay, thanks, Deepak. Kanan, I read somewhere, this is the Maverick Consulting Company, not your company. There is a contrarian view. If you go to the Gartner site, it talks about it. And this is very interesting. The contrarian view is big data is bad. Okay? I'll read what it says. It misdirects unsophisticated managers from key patterns while they mistake them meaningless for reality. Right? In the hands of the naive, it will cause more harm than good. So that is the Maverick Consulting Company. They are taking a completely contrarian view of big data. So how do you monetize in this context whatever data or big data we are collecting, and what is your viewpoint on that?
Good. First, I just want to congratulate your Prevision team for the excellent work which they did today morning. It was amazing insight which they gave. The reason why I'm talking about it here is because with the kind of secondary and tertiary data that you had, the kind of slicing and dicing that you could do to provide that kind of insight, you know, if you can do that, just imagine what kind of a gold mine of data each one of those telco operators are sitting upon, and they're actually waiting to get their hands to it and do something about it. I want to have a contradiction there, basically, because day in, day out, I actually go and meet the telecom operators all around the world, and I'm seeing a marked difference in the way they are looking at data, the way they are looking at customers, and the way they are actually approaching problems and trying to come up with solutions. Every time I walk into a room with the telecom operator, the first question they ask is, show me the customer. And they also say, I don't want to look at a customer as a mobile number, but I want to see a human face. There's a big, big difference, and there's a paradigm shift in the way telecom operators are starting to look at, you know, how they want to see and how they want to visualize customers. And that's making a big difference in the way, the kind of data they want to collect. And that is what is really going to be the, you know, the cornerstone in how big data is going to get monetized the right way. You know, and I think we are around the corner on that, and basically we are turning the bend right now. We are at the cusp of a big change which is likely to happen, and I'm seeing that trend across. Today we talk about Amazon, and we talk about you know, Google doing a lot of research on
Flipkart, next to me.
On drones and other things.
Little
do we know about a telco operator in the US, in the West Coast, who's actually using drones to go and actually do periodic check on signals, okay, density and weaknesses across the West Coast, and he's actually creating an intelligent system which will actually, you know, nullify the congestion which is happening today. So there is a lot of activity which is happening, and Kalol, I only think that probably in 18 months to come, or 9 months to come, or 18 months to come, probably you're going to get a call from one of the telecom operators saying that, sir, we know that you have these connections, you have those connections, you have this, but would you also want to have something else?
I'm waiting for that day.
Yep, it is going to happen, and I'm seeing that happening, and I'm actually very thrilled about it, because I'm actually seeing it right on day in and day out. I'm actually seeing that, and I'm really fascinated by the kind of opportunities and the possibilities which are there for people who can actually look at data, information, and make meaning out of it, and create business cases which would be really, really helpful in creating some kind of an ROI case specific to individual operators and to the community at large. So I think it's a big, big opportunity which is waiting to be tapped, and I think the telecom operators are right now looking at it the right way.
Okay. Thanks, Kanan. That was interesting. At least there is some positive vibe I can see.
There is the world is not that bad.
In terms of...
Let me tell you that.
No, so I started with, no, big data is bad. So you contradicted me, which is good. And that Maverick viewpoint is not this Maverick's viewpoint. That's a different consulting company. And Kanan's Maverick is actually looking at it positively, which is very good. So finally coming to Kaushik from Protivity. Has been a long wait for Kaushik, actually. Sorry, Kaushik, I had to keep you waiting for a long time because a lot of panelists took more time than I expected. Doesn't matter. But give us a view of, in your perspective, in your world, this monetization of big data is becoming a big challenge, as we saw right across, except Kannan, who spoke about things are looking bright. I think Satyam touched upon how Flipkart is actually, utilizing the data gathered to have better customer experience, better customer support, which in turn is sort of a monetization, but indirectly. So what do you see in the marketplace today in terms of monetization?
Correct, thanks. From my perspective, see, big data monetization starts in a telecom with the existing customers. Are we focusing on the failures of the existing customer is the first point to be looked upon. So we are saying that a particular customer is browsing a particular Flipkart or Amazon, so that is a different thing. But how many failures are there? Let me give you example from my side. See, I'm using a Vodafone connection and I have a 3 GB data usage. So if I see for the past 3 months, I'm crossing that 3 GB. What am I doing am I boosting up or not? That is the question. No, I'm not. What I'm doing, I'm taking my Tata Photon, I'm putting it on Wi-Fi and I'm started using it. So in Tata Photon, again, I have 5 GB. So I'm not using exactly the 5 GB, but I'm paying them the complete amount. At the same time, for a Vodafone, it's a loss of revenue. So how are we attacking it? So from a telecom perspective, how are we doing, what are we doing to come out of that is a big question. So I get calls from Idea saying, sir, your number is a good number. We want you to offer these things. We want to additionally offer these things. You just put yourself. So is Vodafone doing that? So that is the first question. So use of the data, what you have is for the existing customers and the failures faced by the customers, especially in the network currently. So most of the times you go, you download from an Apple store. So it completely downloads and before finishing it, it goes back and it again starts downloading. So am I losing data over there, whatever I'm paying? So these kind of analysis should be there in the big data part, wherein monetization comes in from your own family, which is existing with you in the network. Next, you can move to the next level of customers where you want to achieve. But enlightening your current customers by checking the failures from various things, not only network, billings, everything you need to collate it. So that is where the big data. So coming to that point, do we have the right set of data with you is again the basic question. Are you getting the complete fields from the network side? So if anybody of you know a Huawei network or a Ericsson network, so when a call record is generated, there are more than 250 fields. So how many fields a telecom operator has configured in his system to get the right perspective of a customer experience? We are losing the crux, what we have to see, and we are seeing only what has been shown to us by various data analytics and big companies like, because they also don't have the data. They can only provide you what they get from, right? But are we seeing the crux? Are the companies are thinking, even an e-commerce company, as Sanjay told, that are we focusing on what we need to provide? Do we want to only generate business, or we want to ensure whatever we are generating is coming to us? So that is the first question, right? So a perspective needs to be thought from this side, wherein the data, what we are getting is fine or not. Then probably we will check on the failures for the customers. Then we will move on to the next level, which is collaborating with various companies. A telecom company can collaborate with Flipkart, with other companies. What I heard from Middle East and other sides is a Vodafone is such greatly doing that if a customer is looking or browsing for sunglasses at a particular point of time and he reaches a mall in some shorter time, a message is popped out to both the sunglass company and the customer saying that there is a list of companies or list of shops over there.
And there will be discounts.
There will be discounts. And so this is the customer enlightenment. And if you give this, your customer will stay with you, your customer will increase your revenue. And the third thing is you will also get a revenue from the other side, which is a Flipkart or which is other company. So that is the way the monetization begins. I think if I want to say, I can't say much on the telecom side, but I'm saying the e-commerce industry is using in the positive way a big data rather than a telecom company, which I think it's a very big sad news for us because telecom has humongous data. We are not even seeing what is there in the systems. We are seeing, I think, only 50% what is there in the system. So in my experience, I had been with some telecom operators where we used to sit with the companies like Huawei, and we had read the 255 fields, what is that and what it can give us. And we have even included 170 fields in the network, which should give as an output to the telecom companies. So the crux need to be learned rather than just discussing on big data, monetization. So if you have the concept of monetization, you will never grow. That is what I feel.
What's the reason why telecom companies, you think, are not pushing the envelope, given that a lot of new age industries are beginning to do that? Is it just legacy that is driving you guys back? What's the problem?
Partly legacy.
One is legacy.
Yeah.
The second thing is cost. Whenever you go for an addition of fields, there is a cost associated to it. So while they think how much that
right hand side will charge. Delight.
So I'll probably add to what specifically he's saying, and to answer your question specifically, right? This is something which we mentioned earlier also. One is definitely a legacy because the focus has been to add the customer.
Yes.
Right, that's been the focus, and that's how. So what they say, whatever is data available now, let me start looking at it. The problem is they look at it in silos. One example he was talking about is that when he reaches a location, then there is some message popping out. Now let me tell you that it's there in Airtel. Location-based services, location promotion, it's there in Airtel, at least in some of the circles, they actually do that. The problem is that it is done by, say, a vendor. So there are so many multiple vendors who are there, say, tagged to Airtel. And one of the vendor will do it. So there are about 4 to 6 recommendation engine which does a similar job to big data analytics, which is running in the Airtel premise. So one smart guy will do this. The 10 other smart guys who are there as vendors will not do it. So what happens is that end of the day, I as a subscriber, I get 20 SMSs in a day. So therefore, when this one smart relevant SMS comes to me, I actually lose sight of it. It's called a blind spot.
Correct.
So essentially, even if you talk about anything like a big data analytics and then the campaign, if it is not done at the organization level, if it is done at functional level, or if it is done at vendor levels, right? For example, there are about 10,000 short codes of VAS products earlier. Now they cut that short to about 280 short codes, which means that there are limited number of VAS services. Yeah. So right, so if I start offering everybody the same platform, then it's going to work. But as one is working on a big data, the other guy is actually just randomly sending across the SMSs. What happens is the customer then does not find it relevant. And it's actually a push. If you look at e-commerce, it's not a push, it's a pull. When you get into an interface, you get the pop-up, right? It's not like you start sending the SMS that, okay, this guy, you need to buy this. The moment you make it into a push strategy, people are going to stay away from it. Right. Whenever it's a pull, like an interface which is going to be then the scroller coming up, it's going to pick up more.
So we've tried to implement something very interesting recently, and this will never become public news. But this is very interesting how we are trying to collect data. I've just spoken about this. We are implementing something called push signals now, whereby once a day we're going to push a ping to your to everybody who's holding an app, and on the reverse ping we're going to get information like your geolocation, what device are you holding, how much memory do you have on your device, whether you are about to uninstall the device, various certain behaviors that you have been doing, and then we're going to again customize certain offers or certain communication that we might do to you.
So Satyan, that is scary. Actually, and that will involve privacy rules. I'll talk to you later about
that. And the smartest part is if it's real time. Anything is real time and the call to action immediate, it's going to work.
So Arjun, we have completely run out of time. I've got 0 now on the clock, not even 1. So just to wrap up, and I think we had a phenomenal panel and talked a lot of things. So Arjun talked about how it should be driven from the organization level if big data and monetization of big data has to be successful. There are a lot of upsell, cross-sells which are happening with time, and old wine in new bottle is what he referred to, but that got subsequently changed, right? I'll come to that. So biggest challenge will be the platforms, different platforms and system, and how do we integrate data across different channels of or the platforms which we are operating in, and that if we solve even 50-60% of it, we'll get better meaningful data. Vikas talked about telcos who are not innovators but followers, and they're focusing on spectrum and spectrum alone. And there's a lot of work to be done by the telcos, I believe. And to monetize big data will be a bigger challenge than acquiring new customers in the long run. And that, in effect, will be the next wave of, I would say, long-term investment plans for telcos, because if they can't keep their customers now, how are they going to grow? So that becomes a big challenge. Satyam touched upon Flipkart and all the nice activities which are happening in the back end. I'll talk to him regarding the ping later on, because that is something which will generate a lot of data actually. If you are actually...
I mean, obviously, we're going to be very, very careful about
Correct.
not invading privacy,
Yeah.
and using it in a positive manner.
Positive manner, correct. So those are things which need careful introspection, because I just can't send the data and get relevant information without the customer knowing about it. I think those are privacy rules which will come in. And same concept we have for healthcare application. For example, if I'm trying to sell a healthcare application in US, it has to be HIPAA compliant and all that. So some compliance levels are required as far as analytics are concerned. So that is good, and I think mobility is the way to go, and that's generating a lot of data on the e-commerce platform, and that will be relevant in monetizing the entire aspect of it. Samit talked about devices doing a lot of work. Actually, my iPhone is a big data platform, because everything I do during the day happens on the iPhone, and it gets pushed to the iCloud. So I don't even care who's pushing when, and whenever I'm on the Wi-Fi, it gets pushed. So individually, we are generating a lot of data, which effectively means big data for a lot of platform providers and a lot of analytics providers who are utilizing this data to generate meaningful information. I think that's the other way to look at it, and that brings us to the tool and how the 150% profit margin or breadcrumbs those guys are doing. We need to relook at that and see if that can be replicated elsewhere. Deepak talked about sharing data with partners. I think that's important, and how we can actually effectively manage the next stage where, he talked about how we can make those offers more meaningful, like, and get a value out of it. Means I give a £1 lunch offer. How many of my customers, prime customers, have utilized it? If I don't know, how am I going to, bring in the next offer or customize the next offer? Whether this is successful or not, we don't know. So that monetization effort of the data being collected is not there. So we need more meaningful information around that. And I think the faster they do, the better it is. Karan talked about how telecom customers are looking at data differently. That's a good point, how drones are checking the network and quality of service being offered. And Kaushik then touched upon how monetization comes from current customers rather than looking and going ahead for acquiring new customers for more analysis or whatever. So collaboration with different companies is also important. So to end, I would just like to add one more comment. Again, this is the did you know I came across while scanning for different aspects of different things in the morning in your campus. By the way, the Wi-Fi in the guest house doesn't work properly, yeah? All of you. It's very patchy. It goes down quite often. So those who are managing the network, please take care. So I found a very important did you know. It says, throughout 2015, 85% of Fortune 500 organizations will be unable to exploit big data for competitive advantage. So I don't know what it means. Basically, they are saying that in 2015, it's not going to deliver the result which everybody thinks it will deliver. But there is hope. As everyone says, there is hope. And monetization of big data will definitely happen with a lot of you coming into the visualization area, velocity area, and the different verticals associated with analytics. I'm sure that people will find ways and means of extracting value out of the data we are capturing and putting it to use in such a manner that it can either generate more customers or make customers really happy so that they stick onto the with the vendor. So with that, I'm going to end here. Thank you so much, and thanks panel for your wonderful discussion.
The questions can be taken offline since we are running short of time. Thank you, dear panel members, for such an enlightening and stimulating session. I now invite my colleagues to felicitate our esteemed dignitaries with mementos as a token of our gratitude and appreciation.
You're in Bangalore? Yeah. Huh? We'll catch up sometime. Yeah. I've already got one. Okay, this is a different one. Thank you. They do it in style. You're in the Kodamangala office?
No, I am in the PW, which is the Cisco Tech project.
Where is that?
Outer Ring Road.
Outer Ring Road, okay.
About a kilometer and a half ahead of where I'm living.
Oh, okay.
We thank our panel members to have joined us and would now request them to kindly